Put spinach and collard greens on the same cutting board. Spinach looks soft, dark, and clean. It wilts almost the moment it meets heat. Collards are heavier. The leaves have thick ribs, tougher edges, the kind of texture that tells you they were meant for a pot, not just a salad bowl. On a nutrition chart, both can look like bone foods. But inside the body, they do not behave the same way. That is the part most people miss. A plant can contain calcium, but still give you very little usable calcium. Another plant can look less famous, less marketable, less superfood, and still deliver minerals in a form your body can actually absorb. That is where the bone story gets more interesting than a calcium pill. This is not about replacing medical care or treating osteoporosis with vegetables. It's about something much more practical. Bone support nutrition is not just about how much calcium a food contains. It's about absorption, preparation, plant part, and evidence. The better question is not only how much calcium is in this plant. The better question is how much can the body use? And the first plant shows why that question matters. Put spinach and collard greens on the same cutting board. Spinach looks soft, dark, and clean. It wilts almost the moment it meets heat. Collards are heavier. The leaves have thick ribs, tougher edges, the kind of texture that tells you they were meant for a pot, not just a salad bowl. Spinach is not a bad food. It is just a bad shortcut. A cooked cup of spinach can look impressive when you only look at the calcium number. But spinach is high in oxalates, and oxalates bind calcium. When that happens, the calcium is still technically in the food, but much less of it is available to the body. That is why spinach is often used as the classic example of the calcium trap. Some estimates put calcium absorption from spinach at around 5%. Kale, by comparison, has been measured around 40%. That gap is the whole lesson. Spinach may sit on the chart like a calcium-rich green, but the body does not read charts. It has to digest, separate, absorb, and use what is there. Oxalates change that equation. This does not mean spinach should be thrown out. It still brings vitamin K, magnesium, folate, and other nutrients that can belong in a good diet. It wilts easily into eggs. It disappears into soup. It can still earn its place. But it should not be treated as the main plant-based calcium answer. That is the part worth remembering. Spinach did not fail. The shortcut failed. We looked at the number and forgot to ask whether the body could use it. On a nutrition chart, both can look like bone foods, but inside the body, they do not behave the same way. That's the part most people miss. A plant can contain calcium, but still give you very little usable calcium. Another plant can look less famous, less marketable, less superfood, and still deliver minerals in a form your body can actually absorb. That's where the bone story gets more interesting than a calcium pill. This is not about replacing medical care or treating osteoporosis with vegetables. It's about something much more practical. Bone support nutrition is not just about how much calcium a food contains. It's about absorption, preparation, plant part, and evidence. The better question is not only how much calcium is in this plant. The better question is how much can the body use? And the first plant shows why that question matters.
Now look at the greens that answer spinach. Kale, collards, and bok choy are not identical plants. They do not cook the same way, taste the same way, or belong to the same kitchen traditions. But for this story, they share one important advantage. They are lower in oxalates, which means their calcium is more usable than spinach calcium. Kale is the familiar correction. Curled or flat, dark green or blue-green, it has a sturdier leaf than spinach. It can be eaten raw, but many people do better with it lightly cooked, softened in a pan or stirred into soup near the end. The useful point is that kale is not magical. It is that its calcium is not locked away in the same way spinach calcium is. Collards bring a different feeling. The leaves are broad, ribbed, and tougher. They belong to old kitchens, especially in the American South, where they were not decoration, they were food. Washed, cut, cooked down, and eaten in real amounts. A long braise makes them tender and deep. A quicker steam keeps them brighter. Both methods can make sense. The best preparation is the one that keeps the green on the table. Bok choy changes the pace again. Pale stems, green tops, a crisp snap under the knife. It does not need an hour in the pot. A few minutes in a hot pan or a short steam is often enough. It gives you another way to bring low oxalate greens into the week without making every meal feel heavy. There is one practical note for this whole group. These greens are rich in vitamin K. If you take warfarin or another blood thinner, the issue is not that these plants are bad, the issue is consistency. Do not suddenly change your intake of high vitamin K greens without professional guidance. That one rule covers the leafy greens here. Now the story can stay where it belongs, on the plants themselves. Together, they show that bone support food is not about finding one heroic plant. It is about building a rotation of foods the body can actually use and the person will actually eat.
Nettle makes people slow down. You do not casually grab it. The plant has fine hairs along its stems and leaves, and if you brush against it, you remember. For many people, that sting is the whole story. A plant on the edge of a trail, a mistake on a walk, something to avoid. Older food traditions saw another side of it. Young nettles were gathered, cooked, dried, and used as food or tea in parts of Europe. Not raw, not carelessly, not from just anywhere. The useful version was the prepared version. The reason nettle belongs in a bone support conversation is not just calcium, it is the mineral spread. Calcium, magnesium, vitamin K, and especially silica. Silica is less famous than calcium, but it matters because bone is not just a hard mineral block. Bone has a flexible collagen framework, a scaffold that minerals settle into. Silica is studied for its role in supporting that mineralization process, the place where collagen and minerals become part of the same structure. That makes nettle interesting in a different way from kale or collards. It is not just another green with minerals. It points to the part of bone people forget, the framework underneath the hardness. But nettle still has a boundary. Do not harvest it from roadsides, sprayed ground, industrial edges, or places you cannot identify and trust. Gloves, correct identification, and heat are part of the preparation. Drying or cooking removes the sting. Blanched young nettles can be used like cooked greens. Dried nettle leaf can be steeped as tea. Some nettle extracts have been studied in lab or animal contexts around bone-related mechanisms, but that is not the same as proving a human treatment. The stronger story is practical. The plant may be common, the knowledge around it is not.
Parsley usually arrives as an afterthought. A sprig on a plate, a few flakes from a jar, a green edge around the real food. In that amount, it barely counts. But parsley changes when the quantity changes. A handful of fresh parsley chopped into food is not garnish anymore. It is an ingredient. Think of tabbouleh-style dishes, where parsley is not sprinkled on top, but forms the green body of the bowl. That is the version worth noticing. Parsley is rich in vitamin K and vitamin C, and it can contribute minerals in food-level amounts when used generously. Vitamin C matters here because bone is not only about calcium filling space. The collagen scaffold has to be built too, and vitamin C is part of that collagen story. Parsley also contains plant compounds, including flavonoids that researchers have studied in cell and lab contexts. That does not mean parsley builds bone in people, but it does mean the plant is more than the decorative leaf most of us learn to ignore. The difference is almost embarrassingly simple. A sprig is a signal, a handful is food. And once parsley becomes food, the flavor changes too.
It is sharp, clean, green, and bright. It cuts through heavier dishes. It makes the plate feel more alive. The old mistake was not that parsley lacked value. The mistake was using so little that its value never had a chance to appear. Turmeric looks powerful before anyone says a word about it. The powder stains the spoon. It turns oil gold. It smells earthy, warm, slightly bitter. It has the kind of color that makes people want to believe it must be doing something dramatic. That is where the caution starts. Feeling medicinal is not the same as being medicine. Turmeric does not supply calcium the way collards do. It does not directly build new bone like a mineral being laid into a structure. Its place in this story is different. Curcumin, the best-known compound in turmeric, has been studied for inflammatory pathways. That matters because bone is always being remodeled. Some cells build bone, other cells break it down. In aging bodies, chronic low-grade inflammation can push that balance in the wrong direction, encouraging more breakdown than rebuilding. So turmeric belongs here as a support player, not a bone-building food. It sits on the edge of the bone story, where inflammation, cell signaling, and long-term diet patterns meet. But the method matters. Traditional cooking often pairs turmeric with fat and black pepper. Black pepper contains piperine, which has been studied for increasing curcumin absorption in certain contexts. Fat also makes sense in the kitchen because turmeric is not just a mineral dissolving neatly into water. A little turmeric blooming in oil with black pepper is a different story from stirring dry powder into water and expecting a miracle. And it is very different from taking high-dose curcumin capsules. For this video, turmeric belongs in the food level category. It may support a broader anti-inflammatory eating pattern, but it does not treat osteoporosis, rebuild bone, or replace medical care. The useful lesson is not take more turmeric. It is this. With some plants, the compound gets all the attention, but the preparation decides how much of the story is real.
Prunes do not look like the strongest evidence in the room. They're dark, wrinkled, sticky, and ordinary. Most people think of them as a digestive food and stop there. They do not have the sting of nettle, the bright green of parsley, or the golden color of turmeric. That is why they are interesting. Prunes have been studied directly in postmenopausal women for bone mineral density. In a 12-month Penn State study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, researchers looked at daily prune intake at 50 grams and 100 grams per day. The 50-gram amount is roughly 4 to 5 prunes. The key finding was not vague. The 50-gram daily dose helped prevent loss of total hip bone mineral density over 12 months in the women studied. That does not mean prunes are an osteoporosis treatment. It does not mean every person will get the same result. It does not replace medication, strength training, vitamin D status, calcium needs, or medical guidance. But it does make prunes different from many foods that only have tradition, only have nutrient charts, or only have lab evidence behind them. Here, the evidence reaches into human dietary research. The possible reasons may involve polyphenols, potassium, boron, magnesium, vitamin K, and effects on inflammatory pathways. But the mechanism does not need to be exaggerated. The main point is already strong enough. A small, ordinary food has been tested in a serious way in a relevant population with a measurable bone density outcome. That is better than a miracle claim. It's quieter, but it's stronger. Prunes still have practical limits. They are sweet. They affect digestion. People managing blood sugar, carbohydrate intake, kidney concerns, or potassium intake may need to be thoughtful. But for many people, they are not exotic, expensive, or difficult. They are sitting in the grocery store looking completely unimpressive. Sometimes that's where the better evidence hides.
After all of this, the question changes. It is not which plant has the most calcium. That question is too simple. Spinach shows why. The number can look good, while absorption tells another story. Kale, collards, and bok choy show what more usable greens can look like in real kitchens. Nettle brings in the collagen framework, the mineral spread, and the old preparation knowledge. Parsley shows that quantity can change a garnish into food. Turmeric shows that inflammation belongs near the bone story, but not as a cure. Prunes show that the most ordinary food in the room may have the strongest human data. The better question is this: can the body use what the plant contains? How is it prepared? Is this food composition, traditional use, lab evidence, animal research, or human data? And is there any reason this person should be cautious before turning it into a habit? That is not legal fear. That is plant intelligence. Return to the cutting board. The spinach is still there, but now it has a more honest role. The collards are steaming. The bok choy still has a crisp stem. Kale waits for the pan. Parsley is no longer a lonely sprig. Turmeric has left a gold stain on the spoon. A jar of prunes sits quietly on the shelf. And outside, nettle catches the light near the edge of a path, useful only if the place, the plant, and the preparation are right. That is the kind of knowledge worth keeping. Not miracle claims, not fear. Just the habit of looking closely before believing the label, the headline, or the old story. If you want more plant stories that separate useful tradition from exaggerated claims, subscribe to Plants They Forgot and tell me in the comments which one surprised you most: spinach, nettle, parsley, turmeric, or prunes.